All right, well, let's jump in. Name's Mike Doloff, Chief Revenue Officer, InflowCX. We're part of Amplix now, and really proud of that. It's exciting. We've been on that journey for almost a year now. But I'm here to talk to you about Mitel MiVoice Connect end of life details. So there's a lot going on in that world, and you obviously, if you're on this, you probably have some interest in that topic. We're going to spend 95% of our time on that, but a couple housekeeping things. We got some upcoming webinars. Would love to have you tune in if any of them sound interesting to you. We've got one on Apple Intelligence and AI. It's a great follow-up from some of the sessions we've had with, on this topic of AI. Lots of those this year. It's a great roundtable we've got coming up on the 24th. And on the 26th, this one might be really relevant too, talking about using Microsoft Teams for phone. What do you do with that? There's lots of different ways to do it, some education on that topic. So let's jump in. Really, really quickly, I'll give you just a little context on Inflow if you're not as familiar with us, but we're going to spend the bulk of the time right in the middle there. Talk about the details and strategies around Mitel MiVoice Connect, which is formerly known as ShoreTel product. So we're going to spend the time there. Ask questions in the chat. I'll be keeping an eye on those if you want me to drill down into any topics, and I'll try to address those as we go, but I'll hopefully have a couple minutes to catch any at the end too. And I promise you we will end on time. Okay, so some quick context. InflowCX, we are focused on unified communications contact center technology. So you think of all of the, messaging and telephony and meetings, and then all the components of contact center, right? AI and workforce management, workforce workforce optimization and outsourcing and analytics and all these categories around kind of enterprise communications. That's what we work in. We've done tons of business in that space, our specialists, and there's about our total company is almost 180 people or so, about 100 of us really kind of deep experts in this kind of UC contact center landscape. Work with all the providers in this space, have a ton of great relationships with the tech partners, aren't just focused on one, like to bring our customers, you know, what are they trying to accomplish? And let's bring the best of the best of the best in that conversation. And so just to give you a sense, we work across all sorts of verticals, lots of, kind of mid-size and enterprise companies and all sorts of different, industries across the US, headquartered typically. And then on the tech partner side, we work with, again, these are just some of the partners, but some great partners. Obviously, Mitel's been a historical partner of ours. Worked with them for 12 plus years through the ShoreTel relationship. But lots of other, categories around this enterprise communication space that we've got great relationships with, really effectively work with everyone in this space. So enough on us. Let's dive into the topic. So let's talk about MiVoice Connect end of life. And let me go to this really quickly. This is not the first time I've done this webinar. We've done this webinar many times to educate people about this because MiVoice Connect has had a end of life schedule published now for a couple of years actually. And so we're coming up on some really key milestones now. So probably some of this may be new for you, but it's not new from hey, this has been coming for a while. And we've been trying to be like Homer Simpson here, ringing the bell and more like letting people know like, hey, this is coming. Let's have conversations and be strategic about what this means. At a very high level, technical support on the MiVoice Connect. And so be clear, MiVoice Connect is the ShoreTel platform, right? Rebranded under the Mitel name as MiVoice Connect. The technical support ends in 2029 on the system, and I'll show the timeline in just a minute. We will continue to support customers on it. What we're going to talk about, though, there are some risks and limitations of staying put on that platform. And not just like in future years, like within the next couple months, things drop off that you can no longer add that are pretty important if you're growing and scaling the system. And then there's patching and security concerns that you might have if you stay on the platform. So we've been talking with customers about that as well as what do you do, right? We've also migrated, I think, I lost count actually a little while ago. It's definitely over 200 MiVoice customers to new solutions over the last couple of years. So a lot of experience helping customers, been a great platform for many organizations, but hey, it's time to move on. Where do we go? How do we do it? That's what we've been helping hundreds of customers do. And so that's a perspective we'll bring. So let's talk about the end of life timeline. We're right pretty close to this date, which is the end of add-on sales for the system. What does that mean? I'll talk about that in just a minute. Um, End of user license sales is a new stage they added in the last like 6 months. This is a new chunk that they put in here from the end of life. And what it basically means is they were going to just stop all license sales on the system at the end of this year. Now they added this little, you can add user licenses still. You can't add other important licenses though. So we'll talk about that. And also coming up in a year and 3 months is this end of design support, which means no more patching happens. So this is pretty important. And then this gets out to the end of technical support, right? So where we can actually provide support, we'll have Mitel TAC access and things like that. If we're your support partner, that drops off in just about 5 years. So that's the whole life cycle. We're going to drill into these nearer term dates just a little further. I think there's some interesting things to understand there. Move to the next slide. All right, so this is the first challenge with some of these dates. Through 2025, on the left, you can add these user licenses, right? So MiVoice Connect licenses or all the kind of user licenses. What's not available after the end of this year is you cannot add system licenses, voice switches, and things like that. So a site license, you make an acquisition, or you're going to open up a new office and want to have them be kind of their own group, right? Site within the MiVoice Connect system. You will not be able to buy that license after the end of this year. SIP device licenses, virtual phone licenses, DVS licenses. If you're familiar with the system, administer it or aware of it. Those are all pretty core things to kind of like scaling the system out. So really the summary is your capacity expansion on the system is basically non-existent after 3 months from now. So you can add some of these licenses now, right, in advance. That's one option. But after this, you won't be able to add these system licenses anymore. So it's fairly limiting if you're growing with the system in any capacity, organic growth, acquisition growth, etc. So that's kind of challenge one that customers right now are staring at. The second one is patching and security. So this is specific language from the Mitel system, but basically I won't read this whole thing. You're welcome to read it. Mitel is going to maintain the discretion to release patches until the end of 2025, so a year and 15 months or so from now. There will be no software updates of any kind after that. So the system will be as it is. And it's basically like, hey, after December of this year, we may or may not make any kind of patches to the system. So they're going to push out one service pack that you can see at the end of this year. And after that, that might be the last one that ever happens on the system. And as the last sentence is the really big thing to think about is, so there's potential stability, OS compatibility things that can arise, obviously, right? Windows Server and things like that, compatibilities that will come up after 2024 that might not be addressed, but they also, vulnerability bugs, things that come up like that from a security standpoint. Security is obviously top of mind for a lot of customers. This is an area where it's going to be a weaker vector in your environment effectively. So, in the words of Mitel, right, security conscious MiVoice Connect customers should accelerate their transition. So that's kind of the big two. So I haven't seen any questions come in, but I'm happy to slow down or go back on any of those kind of two topics if there's anything that anyone wants to drill into or is not clear about those. Those are the big things. Limited capacity expansion at the end of this year, limited to no patching and security vulnerability fixing after this year. Okay. So those are big things. And again, not new to a lot of people, but reinforcing like, wow, it's basically almost here. We're down to a couple months at this point. So for most customers, they're looking to move, right? What should we do? It's been a good system. It's been stable. It's been cost effective. But you can't grow with that system and you can't patch that system going forward. So a lot of customers were helping through a process that looks like this, right? What are your current needs? Let's see how we're using the system today. Let's look at some of the top providers that might meet the needs of that. Let's look at demos that focus on what you're doing and what you want to do with the system, pricing, proof of concept in some cases. Sometimes customers are like, hey, I wanted to do this like an RFP, or I need to have I've got a lot of different people across the company that we want to build consensus on, and we can help, kind of build a scorecard and do these things. I'll talk a little bit more about the process, but this is high level. Build the business case. Hey, you're transitioning from prem to cloud. What's the business case? Hard costs, soft costs. other benefits? How will the math work out? Those are all things we help the customers with. What's the scope of deployment? Let's get the contract done. Let's then deploy and then let's start optimizing. There's a lot of cool things that customers are doing once they've moved to a modern platform as well. Most people, so successful peers in this space, what we're seeing them do, right, are they're not staying with an on-prem solution most of the time. There are options out there, to be clear. We as a company don't focus on those. We don't think that's where most customers are going. It's certainly not where there's a lot of innovation or many players. Very, very few on-prem solutions out there anymore. There's very little innovation in that space. Support and resources and things like that are lacking. We've obviously entered a world where there's a lot more ability to tie communications platforms to become a platform, APIs and integrations with things. Um, the ability for hybrid and remote workers to be connected and collaborating with peers and other business partners, right? Those things are really tough to do with a lot of on-prem solutions, as you probably know today if you're working off the MiVoice Connect. So that's what most people are not doing that. The majority of the market is looking at, hey, what do I do to move into a cloud solution? And you see a lot of folks looking at Teams and Ring Central and Zoom and Dialpad and others. And that's where we're helping a lot of customers move to, evaluate and move to those kinds of solutions and others. That's the other piece is there are lots of solutions and there's lots of noise and we can help you cut through that. So there's really kind of like, I would say three buckets of Mitel customers that we typically see, right? And it'd be good for you to kind of identify which bucket you're in. There's really kind of the UC only, which would mean your UCaaS, Unified Communications as a Service, right? This is where, hey, our enterprise communications today is around phone or phone and messaging or phone messaging and meetings. That's all kind of under that, what they call UCaaS, Unified Communications as a Service bucket. So that's where things like Ring Central and Zoom and Teams and others play, right? Then you've got some customers on Mitel that have a combination of that kind of unified communications as well as contact center. That's what the CCaaS is, contact center as a service. So think of this as like you might be using work groups on Mitel today. Now, sometimes those work groups are better fit to kind of move into the UCaaS, kind of more an advanced hunt group or a light contact center. Other times, maybe there's an opportunity to really enhance what that part of the organization is doing, and they need more robust feature functionality. And then that's the contact center offering. And there's some of these players that have great UCaaS and CCaaS, and some that are really focused more on one or the other category. There's very few Mitel customers, but there are some that are really contact center heavy. And that's where you're looking more at kind of the CCaaS only type of solution. What are the providers that can really fit that need? And so we've got experience in that depth as well. There's different names you'll hear there, right? Like Genesys and Five9, NiceCX1, TalkDesk, Amazon Connect, and more. But those are kind of the three buckets. And I would say there's a lot of folks that fit into two. There's a part of your organization that has a lot of customer interaction, right? It's today, if it's on ShoreTel, it's probably a lot of voice, which is great. It's still a channel a lot of people have, but your contact center is probably feeling a lot of pressure to contain costs, maintain SLAs, and things like digital channels. How does that integrate into your communication strategy better? Things like email and chat, SMS. Your customers might be needing more channels like that. This whole exploration of a migration should encompass those things. And that's where we're skilled and can bring the value of doing this for hundreds of customers. You've got things you probably really love on your Mitel system today, and you'd hate to see go away. Don't assume those are there on new platforms, right? So let's really identify what you're using, how you're using it. Get the key things, get the things that would be nice to have, and then go out and find the right technology partners to take you into the future. So we'll pause there, see if there's any questions. I need a drink of water too. Okay, nothing yet on that slide. One comment on it. We work with all these players. I've said that before, but I think it's a really important point. I think oftentimes if you're on this and you're a customer, you're like, yeah, InflowCX, they're awesome. They're my Mitel partner. We're honored that you like us, but we don't want to be pegged as just the Mitel partner. We are much broader than that. Much. We do way more business than just within the Mitel Prem world, for sure. And that's been the case for many, many years. And I think sometimes we don't do a great job of explaining that to customers and kind of get painted into that corner. We can work with all of the players on here and a lot more. And not only from a, hey, we can help guide you to that and being a great account manager and advocate, We have technical capabilities with a lot of these platforms as well. You might have worked with our project managers and project engineers and trainers and managed services team. Well, guess what? We have that on many of these providers in the cloud as well, because we think there's tremendous value in bringing that kind of capability to customers. It's oftentimes you're on a cloud solution, there's still care and feeding and optimization that can be done. We're happy to augment and extend your team's reach into doing that and be a great partner like we've been on the Mitel side into your future with that as well. Okay, so I'm going to drill into this because you might say, oh man, if you're like every other IT person that I get to talk to on a daily basis, you got way more things on your plate and not the same. Your demands have gone like this and your resourcing has gone like this or this. So there's a problem. How do you do these things that are mission critical to the business, but you got to keep the lights on and do 10 other things? This is where I think we can help. We do a lot of the heavy lifting on things. We can help with a technical evaluation of where you're at today, right? And this is kind of a process we follow. We're going to be an extension of the team. Let's talk about what we're trying to do. Let's have an internal kind of expectations, get on the same page call, and then let's dig into it. We're gonna gather data, right? We can gather data from the MiVoice system. We can talk to key folks. We're going to build out kind of a workbook around capturing all this information, because this is not just a opportunity to, move off of a system that's got a couple that, down to months left of kind of probably really functional use for the business. It's also an opportunity to think, what are we doing today that could be efficient? Where can we find cost savings? Where are some potential for consolidation? What else is happening out there in shadow IT that I'm not aware about, where we can uncover through this a process to make sure we kind of have a cohesive enterprise communication strategy? That's all stuff that will help you uncover who are the people we need to pull into this, right? What are parts of the business that are really critical when it comes to communications? Let's make sure we've got great representation and get them to have buy-in into the process as well. All stuff we do. That could be contact center, that could be part of the sales org, etc. Maybe it's marketing because they want better analytics on things. Those are all things we're used to kind of folding into these enterprise communication processes. And then talk about the technical requirements, right? What are we integrated with? What are we doing? We've got Office 365. Where does that play? Or Microsoft 365. Where does that play? What are we using for CRMs? What other proprietary systems and data lakes and other things out there that we need to fold in? Contact center obviously has lots to talk about there. What are security requirements, right? We work with customers that have ITAR standards and PCI compliance and HIPAA compliance and all sorts of things. What's the technical stuff? Let's gather all that. Let's build a document that kind of captures a lot of these requirements. I think this is a big step, right? You're going to need to go and ask someone for money to do a transition. You're going to want to have to need to sell this internally. Let's help you do that. Let's have a document. Plus, when we get down to talking with tech partners, let's have a really good document that captures requirements well. And I'm not talking like a 2-page document. We have the summary, but like that gets really deep. So when we get somebody into the conversation, a Ring Central, we can prep them before and say, these are the things that matter to this business. This is how they're using things today. This is what they need to get to. And they're looking for the right partner to be able to do these things. Let's focus the demo on these things versus just the plain vanilla demo they show to anybody. Get those vendors, get them narrowed down to the right ones, get the stakeholder buy off. This is where we can do things like scorecards, because I know there's, in a lot of organizations these days, there's a lot of people who need to make the decision, and there can be analysis paralysis. So we can help really take away the risk, make a good data-driven decision with some of how we do this evaluation, how we will build scorecards, help you guys kind of get consensus to down select who is the right provider or vendor to bring, or vendors to bring into the final solution. And then the other stuff, right? Like, what do you look for in contracts? What are good terms, or what are market rates of things? What are standard clauses that you should get added that they're not going to add unless we push them to add them in there? Those are all things we can help with, as much or as little as you want. And then of course we're not going to say, hey, good luck. You've signed it. Good luck with the transition. We're going to be there by your side, whether we're implementing that with you, or the provider is implementing it, and we're there to keep them accountable, keep you guys on track to get the outcomes that we worked on through this process. So that's kind of the high level of an eval. I love this because this is something we've built over the last 10 years, working through these processes over and over and over. And there's a lot of IP, there's a lot of experience and depth, but it's also, this is professionalized, it's polished. Of course, it's adapted to your needs. So if you've done some of this work, we're not going to say, let's start over, let's plug in where you're at, but really make this a great process to take the risk away. A lot of our Mitel customers have been on it for years, like 10 years, 12 years sometimes, right? 15 years. You've got a lot of, man, I haven't done this in a while. We do this all the time, so let's take the risk out of that. Let's make it a good process. Let's get the stakeholders, et cetera. So that's where we can help. When you say, hey, yeah, you're right, I do need to look at a change. We've got a process for that. Everything I'm showed you in here too, this is not like a for-fee thing. We're not like, Accenture or Deloitte or one of these guys like, we'll do all this. It's just going to cost you seven figures. This is all stuff we do for customers, right? As a part of being their strategic partner. So there's not a cost to it. And so this is just what we consider kind of our job of being trusted advisors, guides in the UC and contact center space. This is what we do. So I think we're close to wrapping. Certainly hit me with any questions. So what are your next steps? Let us help you, right? If you're like, man, I've got to do something, you're right. What are the options? Like, let's talk through what those options are. Typically, if you said, hey, I need to do something, it's typically like, it could be short as 3 months. It could be shorter than that. Typically, I'd say it's more like probably 4 to 5 months from kind of like, hey, I want to do this to like do all that evaluation stuff to selecting a provider, contracting, implementing, and going live. That's usually that kind of 4 to 5 month range. It can obviously be accelerated, but I want to give you some rough idea of that. We do the heavy lifting. So I know that you guys probably have a lot of things on your plate. This is just one of many. This is an area where hopefully if you've worked with us, we've earned trust and built a long-term relationship where we can lean in and be an extension of your team, sit on the same side of the table as you to do this project and to bring in technology partners that could really take this and bring it to the next level. And then again, we can be as much or as little of kind of that implementation or optimization work as beyond. We're gonna stay with you for sure from an account management perspective, but some customers want us to do implementation. They want us to extend their reach into managed services and managing and optimizing the system. We can do that, or we don't have to. It's totally up to you. So if any of this has resonated or not, you can send me a mean text too. I'm used to those as well, but text me, call me, my number, my email here, and really would just love to be a part of the discussion with you guys on it because I think, you know, a decision is just staying put, and some customers will do that for financial reasons or otherwise. There's some significant downsides to that. And again, love ShoreTel, Mitel for a long, long time, but it's basically getting to the end of the road on that platform. And so customers do need to figure out what the next step is. And if you're not sure where to start, we're happy to help you. This is what we've been doing for the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, a lot of. So that's all I got. I'll pause for a second and see if there's any questions I didn't cover. And happy to go back and look at any of the details of dates or anything like that or talk through anything. So fire away if you got anything. I'll give it a second here. All right, one question it looks like about, just go back to the dates, just to be clear. Right, so on the question about licensing, so what Mitel extended in the end of life is this adding user licenses, which is great. So if you're adding users on the system, you have now another 12 months to do that beyond the end of this year. What still is not, what is kind of still in the same time frame is you can't expand the system. So kind of core site licenses, DVS licenses, virtual phone licenses. That's how you expand the system if you're, using virtual switches and things like that. So that's the distinction. And this is really the new thing they changed in the end of life schedule. Everything else has stayed the same. This is kind of in the last 6 months they added this step. As you realize, some customers aren't ready in that transition, so it buys them a little bit more time. So that's all I got. Looks like we got the questions answered, guys. So again, reach out if you've got any questions, if there's any thoughts, concerns, questions, we're here to help you guys with it. And again, have done a lot of this and would love to help you with it. That's all I had today. Even less than 30 minutes. That was on time. Have a great rest of your Thursday, guys. Have an awesome weekend coming up. And we'll hopefully talk to you soon. Bye, everyone.